Okay, we've started broadcasting. Shoot. Man, this thing kills me. Okay. So Min is able to see you guys, to see us, which is good. Can you hear me, Min? Can
I
you
oh
can you chat me if you can hear me? Attendees total. Okay, great. All right. Uh, okay, great.
weird.
Sure why that wasn't working before, but so to anyone on the call, we'll get started here in a minute or two. Leanne will be presenting today. I'll kick things off, and then I'll transition it over to her. I think we just hear Leanne. I think we just have a couple of outside folks, or people outside of our leadership team. So
Okay, great.
okay. All right. So Holly, Mark, are you guys on? Can you send me a quick link message if you can hear me? Oh, they may not have. Let's see if I can. Good. Okay. Right.
Tom, can you see the slide that I'm going to share, or do you see my
Yes.
whole PowerPoint
Yep.
window, or
Yep.
the whole PowerPoint window?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Did it go away again now?
It did. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So
sweet.
what I'll do is I'll mute myself, and hopefully it won't mute you. So let's do a quick test of that. All right, I'm muting myself now.
And here I am. Can you still hear me?
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. All this modern technology we have to work with these days. Right. So I think we'll go ahead and kick it off. It sounds like we have a couple of 3 or 4 folks, not including the leadership team on. So now 4 people, not including leadership. That's good news. Okay. I wanted to welcome everybody to this kickoff session of the Fireside Chat Initiative as part of the FY14 Tech Trends program. Our overall goal through this effort, and this is obviously our pilot session, so thank you for bearing with us throughout the technical struggles, so to speak. The overall goal is to give you a high-level introduction to a particular topic that was part of the FY 2014 Tech Trends Initiative. We wanted to bring you an expert who has a lot of experience and working knowledge of this particular topic. This is the format that we've selected, and we definitely will solicit feedback. We want to hear your honest feedback on the look and feel of the interface, and as well as the overall content of the program itself. So definitely feel free at the end to raise any questions, comments, concerns, any other piece of feedback you'd like. Just again, my name is Tom Carroll. I've developed the program in conjunction with Min Sun Lee, who's also on the line here with us today. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, our guest star for today, Ms. Leanne Mahler. Leanne, please feel free to take it away. I'm going to mute myself, and feel free to take center stage here.
Alrighty. So I am Leanne Mahler. Thanks, Tom, for the introduction. I am a specialist master at Deloitte, and I have been working in IT for quite some time. I've stopped saying how long because it makes me feel old. But I've worked in both software development and operations, infrastructure, servers, network, that kind of thing. And I've worked in commercial companies in industry and in government consulting. I've been with Deloitte for 4 years, and I've had the pleasure of working on some of the initiatives to document and bring information about DevOps to the outside world. So I'm going to spend, and Tom, please tell me if I'm off. I'm going to spend maybe 15 minutes talking about DevOps, and then we can have some opportunity for folks to ask questions, make comments, see if anybody wants a different perspective or something like that. Okay? All right, cool. So Tom, do we have the ability to ask folks to respond? I can't hear you. You're still muted.
We have, again, this is a new tool for us, but in theory we have the ability to use the chat feature if people can see that on their screen at all. If not, if that's not working for everybody, we apologize for that, but definitely feel free to send myself or send Leanne an email, and we'll take that feedback down. So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So I will go forward without questions to the audience. So think about for a minute, what's the most difficult thing to change when you're trying to make a change in IT? What's the most difficult part of that kind of a change? What causes a lot of problems in IT? So these kind of questions are where DevOps comes in to provide some solutions, because the answer is actually not technology. It is people and organizations, communications, coordination. Often in an organization that has a mature, age-wise, IT organization, the organization itself has silos, what we call silos. So it has one area that does that is called the business that does the product development, the marketing, the mission, that makes the decisions about how to steer the company or the agency. Then there's an organization development that does software development, makes new programs, configures off-the-shelf kinds of products, things like that. And then there's a separate organization for operations. Operations are the folks, we like to say, who keep the lights on, who build new servers, who keep the network up and running, and who fill the needs of the applications that the development organization is building. The problem is that these three organizations often don't talk to each other very much, and they sort of throw things over the wall. So once my business folks have a complete idea, they give it to development, but there's no back and forth. It's just, here, development, develop this. When development is finished, they just give it to operations and say, here, operations, give me servers to be able to do this. So the idea behind DevOps is a way to coordinate and communicate better across those functions. So I like to think of it as it's currently sort of three vertical bars, and the idea is to build a horizontal line across those to get teams to be able to work to have people from each of those areas and work together to meet the business mission. So let me check my notes to see if I've said everything I wanted to say. So as the previous or current, in some cases, paradigms are changing from doing serial development, meaning I'm the business, I need something, the development organization goes to create that, and the operations organization supports the hardware and infrastructure needs of that project. Often that's been done serially. So I get my requirements, I do analysis, I do design, I do development, I do testing, I do implementation, and then I start again with the next set of requirements, the next set of analysis, the next set of design. But that's not necessarily a particularly efficient way to go, especially when the business has changing needs, and the industry and the government and everyone need to be able to deliver new functions very quickly. And so what that leads to is an iterative or a fast-paced, some people kind of throw around the term agile development model, where you're working on multiple projects at the same time. They're done in parallel as opposed to serially. And so this kind of coordination for DevOps is really critical in that particular scenario, because if you have a development organization that gets to the end of a piece of development and then says, hey, operations, I need you to build me a server, and this is what the specifications are, and there's a big lead time there, the operations group is going to get totally backed up, because the development organization is going to keep giving those requests that the operations team doesn't necessarily know anything about until the operations group really can't support the new development that's going on. So with new technologies like cloud hosting of software and cloud infrastructure, and the combination of needing to be quick to market and keep budgets as low as possible, DevOps really provides an opportunity to do that, to reduce time to market, to increase the productivity of the teams, to reduce total cost, to reduce outages, because people are coordinating from the very beginning. So what does this look like? A team for a project, instead of being one team from the business that gives a team from development some requirements, who gives operations their completed code or configurations, what DevOps would do is create a team across all of those functions, so that the team itself has the same motivation and the same measurements from all of those groups. The operations folks are involved right up front with the requirements, with the analysis. The development folks are involved right up front with what the business is looking for, what their business objectives are. And there's that horizontal line across those functions so that the team is one team from beginning to end. It doesn't necessarily mean that each team has people that are 100% engaged in that at each one of those time periods, but they have people who are engaged in it and have a sense of ownership of that project across the entire life cycle of the project. So that in turn motivates people to be focused on the success of the project and not focused on the goals or objectives of that group, rather the project. So that lets you go faster. It reduces lead times when groups don't know what's coming. It allows you to put requirements in right up front. So the operations group, if they know there's something that needs to be done, they can put that in right up front in the requirements and analysis phases, which reduces rework down the line, etc. So let's see. So how do we measure this? Once we have tried to put DevOps in place, so we have our organization realigned, if you will, and we have these teams that are assigned to projects from soup to nuts. How do we measure if it's doing us any good or if we're doing it right? There are a couple ways. Let's see if I can get this this slide up. Sorry for this not being an actual presentation. I'm not 100% sure why it doesn't come up that way. But so this slide has a little bit about what the metrics are for tracking DevOps and the success there. So for agility, like we were saying, we have the ability to reduce the amount of time and increase the amount of productivity, the number of times we can get releases to the market. And from a commercial perspective, that means I can be first to market. That means I can change more rapidly. And from a government perspective, that means that I have higher productivity and I can do more with less. And obviously, budgets everywhere are contracting, but the federal government is feeling that very significantly, and that's where I am right now in government consulting. So, so these are really critical changes that you can make to organizational alignment, to communications, to collaboration that will impact the organization really positively. And the piece that's sort of novel about it is that it's not a technology, it's a people and an organization kind of change. So the other piece is reliability, and that is if we have an outage, we can recover it quickly, and if we're making a change, it's to our software or to our configurations or whatever, it is tracked from a configuration management perspective, and it is also successful more often when we make that kind of a change. So let me go back here. I think we're back to me, so if we're not, Tom, tell me. I think I've touched on, but I want to highlight that the benefits here to making this kind of organizational alignment are really about the ownership that people take of their function versus an entire project. So in this case, I've got a group of people who are working for the entire project lifecycle on this project, and they are loyal to the project, and they are motivated to see the project go well, as opposed to maybe being focused on your own function. So let's take operations, since that's where I've been for a while. Operations folks are focused on keeping the lights on how many servers we've built, on making sure that we're implementing standards, but they're internal focuses, and those are not bad things, and there need to be focuses on those areas. But with folks doing new development for a new project, having those folks on the project team really takes that focus and makes it for that project, so that you have a much higher likelihood of success, because people want to succeed in this project that they're working on. It's ownership, it's accountability, it's motivation. So we've talked a little bit about metrics, and that kind of ties back to the benefit, what we're measuring: reduced cost, reduced time to market, higher levels of productivity, lower number of outages, lower amount of time to recover from outages. So those are the kinds of benefits that we see from DevOps. Let's see. One thing that I want to point out, we have a tendency in IT to tend toward technology to solve our problems, right? So I have a problem, I will buy a new tool to fix that, or I have a problem, I'll make my tool bigger to fix that. And DevOps is not about it. There are some tools that can work with DevOps, but DevOps is not about tools. It's about this organizational alignment and communication and collaboration that can only happen if you have buy-in at all levels. So I have let's see if I can get another slide up. Where'd my slide go? Interesting. No slide. One moment, please. There we go. Okay. So this is really, we talk about in IT a lot, the sort of triangle of people, process, technology. These are the things that if any one of these things are broken, then the whole triangle is broken, and it takes all three of the pieces to make the triangle work. So from a people perspective, there's this emphasis on iterative and agile kind of development, and there's more transparency and accountability because everybody is assigned to the project and loyal to it and motivated by it, etc. And you can actually see an increased tolerance for supporting innovation. This kind of it's an adjustment in the way people think, and that can help a lot with supporting new types of projects and innovation and so forth. From a process perspective, really what we're talking about here is communication, it's collaboration, it's really having folks involved across the phases. This also means that from a process perspective, you're testing by your business folks or your audience, the end users of your tool, is driven by the development process. It's tied together. I'm kind of beating that to death at this point, but that's the sort of underlying foundation here. So, and then from a technology perspective, you can use tools to be able to help drive this automation. You can use tools from an infrastructure perspective to do provisioning, to set up infrastructure quickly, and you can also use tools to assist with the actual integration and collaboration. And I'll see if I can just change the page here. So this is actually a tool summary, and I won't focus too much on this, but from a requirements and project management perspective, the tools there can help you have visibility of your project across organizations from soup to nuts. So you can actually have a tool, it's pretty cool, that you put your requirements in, your business folks put your... That's cool. Did everybody else hear that? So your business folks can put your requirements in, and then those requirements turn into test cases, and they go requirements development, test, implementation, and everybody is looking at the same thing. I won't go into a lot of detail here. You can take a quick glance at the slide, but these are the kinds of tools that will help. But again, this is really, at the end of the day, an organizational change, a people change, and not a tool change. So let's see, back to me. Uh-oh. Okay. Can you guys see me again? Okay. So let me stop here and see, Tom, maybe you can say how we can do Q&A or some questions from the audience if they have some.
Sure. So thank you, Leanne. That was a wonderful summary of DevOps, and hopefully everyone on the call learned a little bit something about how important this is, and will continue to be for our clients moving forward. One quick thing that Leanne, just to reiterate one thing that Leanne said, DevOps is very much a mindset, as well as a specific set of procedures or solutions that will deliver clients. So it's important that we help not only deliver PowerPoints and strategy documents, but also help get the client to think in a DevOps mindset. So if we want clients to succeed with this moving forward, and nearly every company on planet Earth should be thinking in a DevOps mindset at this point, it'll be our job as consultants to help them make sure that they get to that mindset eventually. So anyway, just my last thought on that. So in terms of the Q&A, please feel free to use the chat bar. It looks like that's working for just about everybody on the call. If it's not working for you, I apologize. Definitely feel free to send us an email after the fact. Let's do, Leanne, I think about 10 to 15 minutes of questions, and then we'll do a quick wrap-up from there. Okay? Sounds good. So if you have a question for Leanne or myself, definitely please feel free to use the chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen. So some of the people that I've seen in the chat, Megan, David, Ryan, Spencer, any questions, guys? Calling people out by name. Welcome to Deloitte, guys. Come on.
I know, it's like that terrible class where your professor is like, what do you think?
Right.
No.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, Holly, how about you? Is there a question that you'd like to ask to get the conversation started? Maybe that'll trigger Ryan or David to ask a question.
So I still want to make sure the functionality is working. You guys can hear me, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So my question is then, again, technology-wise, so the people that are viewers, I'm an admin, the viewers, they're able to only ask text questions, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. I can't see anything. So I'm just curious, Leanne or Tom, like where do you see this going next from a Deloitte perspective? So if I wanted to get involved with DevOps, is there a particular group that I should get involved with to kind of find out what's next, or do you know what's coming down the pipeline?
Great question. Leanne, do you want to take that one?
Well, there are folks at Deloitte who work in both an operations and a software type of environment, and Deloitte has contracts and service offerings around just what Tom was saying, advisory services for our clients to say, hey, look, you need to be working in this mindset. And then we have both the technical teams and also the organizational development, organizational design teams to go in and do consulting with those clients to say, here are the things you need to do, and then help them do those things to get their organization aligned. We actually, at the agency where I am, we had a large project about a year ago, I think, that realigned the entire operations organization. And at my agency, that's about 1,200 or 1,500 people. It's rather large. And it was an organizational development project, but informed by the theories around technology and around how what mindset we should be in, so DevOps and things of that nature. Does that answer the question? Tom, do you want to talk more about what the service offerings are?
So thank you, Leanne. A lot of that is still sort of in the development phase for Deloitte. Unfortunately, some of our competitors have already started to shift into high gear. And as a little bit of background, Leanne and I worked on a white paper related to DevOps. And in addition to that, I've also taken part in the secondary research, the tech trend secondary research phase on this. And one thing that we found during our research phase and during the writing of the white paper is that some of Deloitte's competitors unfortunately have a little bit of an advantage on us in that they've begun to more formally crystallize, if that's the right word, what DevOps means to them from a service standpoint. So it's tough to pinpoint, exactly that this is Deloitte's DevOps service portfolio offering. But the one thing about DevOps is that it seems to be slowly becoming part of the maybe if not formally part of a contract, it's starting to become part of parlance. When senior managers are talking, I've heard it mentioned a couple times on my project, and I've had friends who have said to me, "Oh, Tom, my senior manager mentioned the word DevOps today." And so even if we haven't crystallized it yet, it is slowly starting to seep into our client conversations, which is a good thing. But so from the formal documentation, strategy portfolio development side of the equation, we probably should start looking into ways to put a lot of that down on paper in a more official capacity. So.
And one of the things that I would add to that, about 10 years ago, before I joined Deloitte, I worked at Geico, and one of the tasks that I had was to make the development organization and the operations organization play nicely in the sandbox. And part of that was what we now call DevOps, but at the time it was play nicely in the sandbox. And one of the things that we were focused on was getting our operations folks involved in the requirements and analysis phase and kind of drawing out, I wish I had a whiteboard to show you, drawing out the curve of when folks are, I'm looking to the side because I'm drawing it in the air, when different folks have different levels of involvement. A long time ago, there used to be a really standard graphic about your business folks had a high level of involvement in your project at the very beginning. They taper off a little bit in development, and they come back up in the testing area. The developers have a little bit at the beginning, and they are big in the middle and a little bit lower at the end, that kind of thing. And getting operations involved even a little bit at the beginning makes a big difference in sort of that end testing and implementation phase, and makes it so that it's less chaotic. And basically what we were doing was a DevOps project, changing the organization, putting in the processes. We were heavily focused on putting in processes that would force people to be involved earlier. But I was sort of the evangelist, right, going around to the development people and saying, this is what could happen if you guys would talk to each other. And of course, like we said at the very beginning, people and organizations can be entrenched and really not want to change. And so that can be really the hardest problem, is getting people on board. And so the processes help with that because they kind of force a little of it. But we actually made some good progress, and I'm still rather proud that some of the processes that we put in place 10 years ago are still in place now, getting that kind of that DevOps feel for the development and operations organizations. So all that is the long-winded way to say sometimes we don't call it DevOps, but it's DevOps anyway. Have you guys gotten any questions?
So we haven't gotten any questions. Definitely need the opportunity for anyone on the line to ask, but that's okay if we don't have any questions at this stage. Leanne, I'll take that as a sign that you did a great job educating everyone on this topic. So, but you know, Leanne made another great point about DevOps, and this was yet another thing that we found during our research and during the white paper, and it kind of goes along with what I was saying before about, you know, making sure that we're not only are we delivering a product to our clients, but really transforming, you know, in our role as the advisor to them, transforming their mindset about how they're thinking about this topic, how they're thinking about their business in general. So it's incredibly important that, you know, we recognize how you know, DevOps may not appear in name, but some of its facets are going to appear, you know, in each of our projects without question. You know, we're all going to see DevOps in some form or fashion, so being able to recognize it is going to be really important. Okay, so we have a question from Spencer, it looks like. So Leanne, I'll read this to you. It's, how do you measure success in DevOps, both technically and culturally? That's a great question, Spencer. I think the answer is probably going to be a little complicated, and it's going to be different from company to company, but Leanne, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I was just going to, let's see, put this slide back up. I think I do. Okay. So these metrics are actually measuring, hopefully you guys can see this table, that are actually measuring levels of success, and these are the ones that we were talking about a little bit earlier, being able to reduce time to market and increase the amount of development that you can get done, and changing lead time to be able to do development and put new projects in place. And then from a reliability perspective, you know, making your product more reliable, your software and applications more reliable, and then reducing the amount of time that you take to fix an application if there is downtime. So from a cultural perspective, that's a more difficult thing to measure. It is. I still didn't minimize that. Okay, back to me. So from a cultural perspective, that's a more difficult thing to measure. You can do it formally with things like, you know, surveys or focus groups or things like that, and we've certainly done that. In the project that I'm working on now, we had a number of focus groups to show pieces of what we were talking about doing and ask our end users and our business folks, what do you think about this? What do you want to see that we don't have? And it sort of was a more iterative way of doing things because we had something to show them so that they could react to it versus just having a set of requirements, throwing it over the wall, developing it, throwing it over the wall, putting it on some servers and sending it out. So I think that those kinds of things can measure the organization's level of acceptance of the change. It can also, or the project for that matter, it can also help you if you do focus groups and things like that. After a change, it can help you gauge acceptance, and I think you could apply that not just to a project, but also to the mindset of DevOps overall. Part of the cultural measure is also in those metrics that we were talking about, because if it's not accepted culturally, it's not going to make those differences. People have to be willing to collaborate. They have to be willing to communicate. The people piece of this triangle is really, really key. Does that answer the question?
Yep. I think that sounded like a great answer to me, Leanne. Spencer, definitely, if you have any more questions, please feel free to, shoot them over to us by email. And Leanne is your, is going to be your primary resource for any and all answers related to DevOps. So definitely feel free to send her a note. So, Leanne, I think at this point we'll turn it over to Holly. For everyone on the line, Holly is one of the senior leaders of a number of different tech trend initiatives, and so she's going to sort of bring us home here with a quick wrap up and some other details. So thank you again, Leanne. Wonderful presentation. Spencer, thanks for the great question. And Holly, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, guys.
Here, let me see. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Leanne and Tom. This was wonderful. Really great intro into DevOps, and I think this is exactly what we wanted to get out of this pilot. So my ask for anybody listening, and for those of you that have volunteered to help us out, what we need help with now is figuring out next steps. So I think there's a number of places that we will look to continue building on this initiative, and at its biggest kind of, if we're dreaming big, it's Bill Briggs doing a webcam session like this on campus, and we invite every campus that we recruit at. That is kind of the big dream, and we need to figure out how we get there. So if the first step is for anybody that has kind of gone through this with us, if you will send any feedback to the same email address that sent this out, that would be really helpful. And or you can email me, hollyprice@deloitte.com, and we are looking for as blunt of feedback as you will give us. So, like, loved the content, hated the tool, loved the tool, hated the content. We're looking for any ideas. If you've done Google Hangouts previously, we certainly have a need for firm experts on doing video conferences outside of WebEx and Verizon. So really just we're looking to go as big as we can. We have budget, we have resources, we're just looking for kind of to brainstorm what's the best way for us to bring this onto campus. For those of you that were involved with Tech Trends 2014 on campus in last spring, we had Bill Briggs do a presentation, but it was largely just slides and him talking over a conference line. And the feedback we got was that was great, but it wasn't very interactive, and you didn't get really the magic of Bill's conferences. So we're trying to remediate that a little bit, but we're still kind of testing out the waters. So this was your primer into DevOps. If everything goes well, we will roll this out in a couple of months on campus with the same topic and introduce it to students. So any feedback that you have around that, send it our way. And again, you can send it to the email address, the Tech Trends Campus Initiative, that emailed you this invite, or you can email me, hollyprice@deloitte.com, if that's easier to remember. Okay, and with that, I think we can end this session. Thank you for working with us through our technical issues, and again, thank you, Leanne and Tom. Leanne, you guys are obviously very, very bright about this trend, and I'm very, very impressed, so I'm glad that we got to do this. And thank you. Everyone have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.